Customizing your worksheet. In this video, we're going to be looking at how we can pimp our Excel worksheet. Okay, I used the word pimp to convey the idea of making your worksheet much more fun to work with. That's essentially the idea. As what we're saying then is that if you're looking at this particular worksheet that I have opened here, you can easily see the obvious difference. On the one hand, this small table to the left here is kind of more organized and nicer to look upon than this other table to your right. They perform the same functions. The cell for total gives you or sums up the numbers and provides the answer. The same thing occurs here. However, the difference is obvious from what or how they are all laid out. Now that is what we call customization or pimping. Okay, just imagine what it would be like if probably you just left the house without rubbing some oil, okay, or probably putting on some shoes or some nice clothing. I'm sure obviously you would be laughed upon and people would think that you're not totally okay. Or you imagine a house that doesn't have doors, doesn't have windows, and people live in it. It's a house obviously, but it's messed up, right? Yeah, that's true. I'd like to see same for Microsoft Excel. Now it's okay to have carefully laid out tables, I beg your pardon, that are performing specific functions, that are doing the mathematical computations correctly. Now it's another thing for somebody to look at these tables and like the way they are arranged and is moved to look at them. There are cases where you might have something written in a book, and simply just because of the way it is arranged, you just get bored. You're like, I cannot read this. I'm sure you must have had experiences like that. So typically, because of all of these slight reasons, we find it important that in as much as your Excel worksheet can perform all the calculations you have programmed it to do, it is important that you also make it to be presented nicely so that any viewer would look at it and say, yes, this is a cute job, this is a nice job, this is wow. That's what we hope to work out. And the basic tool that allows us to do all of that is the home ribbon. And so we'll be looking at how we can play with our fonts, how we can play with alignments, how we can play with our numbers, how we can play with the styles, the cells, and editing. Essentially, that means that we're going to be reproducing exactly what we have to the left here. So I really appreciate it if you pay close attention to everything that we're doing. Okay, now we're not saying we're not trying to redo some kind of calculations like we had done earlier. We're just trying to make our Excel worksheet look nicer. That's just what we're trying to do right now. That's essentially the thrust of customization. Okay, so don't get it mixed up or complicated. We're just trying to pimp our worksheet, make it look nicer. And so I'm going to use the same tools that we have here. As we go through, you'll notice some slight improvements, additions I'll be making, so pay particular attention to each of those ones as we go along. Okay, fine. Now looking at this table to your right, notice that in contrast to this one on the left, the one on the left has some titles: the sum, the cost, and the attendance, whereas this one does not have, right? And one would expect that if we wanted to add the sum, the cost, and the attendance, we might probably need to start deleting this and pushing them down, right? Okay, not to worry, that is not so. Excel makes it possible or allows you to add more rows and more columns at any point in time whenever you need it. And so that is a very nifty trick. So let's see how we do that. Now, to add a new column above this column H2, H1 and column I1, we're just going to do something. We'll just come over here that is on that particular number, directly on it, and right click on it. Okay, I'm just getting over there and then right click on it, at which point you'd click on insert. Voila, what do we have there? Now we have a new row created for us. Okay, all cutting across this whole area. And so over there now I can now easily enter my sum. I can now enter my course, and then I can enter my attendance. That's nice, right? So we can then say invariably that if we wanted to still add a column here, probably to the right of column H, what we'll do now is right click on it and click on insert, and there we have it. We have a new column created, and it maintains this the column address of column H. Now let's just undo that and get on what we're doing. So essentially we've been able to add our titles of sum, course, and attendance with the simple trick of right clicking on that number to the left and clicking on insert. That inserts a new column or a new row, as the case may be. Is that okay? We're sure? Okay, in case you're not sure, I'd like you to pause at this point and try this right now. Okay, so it sinks in, because at some point this could get a little tricky, but just pay attention. I'm sure you're going to follow through. Okay, fine. Now, having done that, chances are that we might want to make this thicker, we might want to make this lighter, we might want to italize them and stuff like that. Okay, so to embolden this, we'll just click on bold. Okay, and it is emboldened. We want to bolden this, we also click on bold, and it is emboldened. Now there is no law against selecting the three of them and bolden at the same time. Okay, so don't get me wrong, you mustn't select them one after the other. You can actually select every single one of them at the same time and apply whatever effect you want to apply. At the same time, you can increase the size of the font. Presently the size of these characters are 11, okay, about 11 points. And so if we were to take it higher to a larger number, notice how they keep increasing in size. You get? So it's possible, or it's okay if you want to increase the size. There's really no rule against that. But just keep in mind that you're just trying to make it arranged such that it is nicer to look upon. And so if taking it this way is going to make it look messed up, please take it back to what it was before now. Okay, the idea of customization is to make it more appealing and not make it scary. Okay, so you want to keep that in mind. Okay, so we're just going to pick on one of the numbers. I think I'd like 12 there. Fine. Now, having done that, the next thing I would want to do now is to play around with maybe the color if I wish, or probably just apply exactly this. So since we mentioned that we're going to duplicate this, why don't we go ahead? Now we're going to do something, and that is going to be to add all of this coloration here. Now to do that, we're going to come over to the styles section. Okay, the styles section of our home tab, that's what we're going to go to, and then we're going to select format as table. Okay, now before we do that, notice that the statement there says quickly format a range of cells and convert it to a table by choosing a predefined table style. So that means that we would need to select the cells first off. If we do not select the cells first off, we're not going to be getting the right thing. So I'm going to select all of these cells this way, okay, and then click on format as table. Now we have several formats all laid out here, and so I could select, I think the one we used here was I guess this one. Yeah, this was the one that I used here earlier. So we're just going to select a different one. So you could go ahead, select a different one. So let's say I was going to use this one. Now it tells me what or where is the data for your table. The data presently is based on cells G1 down to cell I8, right? That's what it's based on. Now notice that it has some dollar signs there. Okay, now it's usually a term that we refer to as absolute addressing. I'm going to talk about that much later, but keep in mind that it's just a term that is used to relate to absolute addressing. We use that to when trying to assign cell addresses that are not meant to be changed or altered at any point in time. That's what basically makes them absolute. And so in cases where we're having the cell address range listed without the dollar signs, they are basically referred to as relative. Okay, you might just want to take that down in case I do not. I'll come back to that. All right, so we've selected the particular cells. Now I can click on OK, and there we have it. We have our table nicely printed or displayed. Now you can easily now see that compared to what we had before now, okay, your table is nicer. Come on, even I know it's nicer. It is nicer, believe that. Okay, it is so nice. So at this point we could say yes, we have a good job. We have a nicer looking table, and when we say wow, this is nice, let's see what it's about. Okay, this is for the course, this is for the attendance, for the so it is just nice to look upon. All right, now let's then make a slight addition. Now we said that at this point you have the total, and to some extent the total should look different from the rest, right? So we can go ahead and select these cells and then come over now, not to format as table but to cell styles. Okay, at this point we could select any particular cell style we want. What we had here was this particular type, right? So I could go ahead and make a different selection. How about that? Okay, so probably we'd use this one, and let's see if it comes out nicely. Okay, it came out okay, not particularly nicely, but I think it did come out, right? Yes, it did. So let's see if we could make it as nice looking as this, probably by emboldening it. Now notice that we're just trying to mix up several ingredients to make this stand out. So I'm just going to select this particular cells and then hit the B there. Now this guy has been emboldened, right? Now how about if we change the font color from this color of about is this orange? Yeah, orange, to probably black, okay, or blue, or which one now would be nicer? Okay, I'm listening. I would use dark blue. Yes, and then let's just change the title of total to a capital T. Okay, now that's looking nicer, isn't it? It is looking nicer, and so one can easily identify that yes, over here we're looking at the total of all of these numbers and the total of all of these numbers, and that's just it. And so essentially you can go ahead to do some extra forms of customization. Now we're in Nigeria, right? And it's possible that, let's say, we're actually trying to deal with some figures that have numbers, right? Now I'm just going to enter a number here, say 1000. I wanted to say this is 1000 naira. Ordinarily what we would see most people do would be to enter the 1000 and then click to the left of the number and then use the capital letter N, and they'll tell you that is 1000 naira. No. Excel has its own tool to do that. It actually has a currency tool that makes it so that you can add several currency types to whichever number you have. And how do we do that? Watch. Now I'm just going to go over here, okay, and then click on more accounting formats. Are you following? I just clicked on this dollar sign, the arrow, the drop down arrow to the right of it, and then I clicked on more accounting signs. So just hold on, it's trying to come up. I obviously have a whole lot of things going on presently, so a dialog box is expected to come out just about now. Okay, if it doesn't come up, just count to 10. Okay, can we count together? All right, never mind, it's here. All right, now I'm just going to click on this symbol drop down menu and then scroll down little by little. We're looking for the naira sign. Yes. Alright, so let's go down a little, and voila, we're there. I can pick that, and okay, and instantly we have our Naira sign inserted for us. Do we get it? So it's very possible for you to add a currency. Notice that there are several other currencies. They're not just the Naira sign, so you could easily use any single one of them from here and apply them for accounting, under currency, for if you wanted to add a time, if you wanted to add a fraction, whatever, you can always play around with them. That's essentially what our numbers here work out for. And so we have a number, and probably we wanted to display them to so and so decimal places. We could just click on that, increase the decimal, and we're having that. You can see the number, the zeros being added to the number, and then reducing the decimals, take out the zeros for us. That's essentially what we find happening here. Or probably we wanted to add the percentage to it so that it looks like a percent, automatically it is added to us. Or we want to remove it, we do not need it. You could always have a whole lot of things to do here. Okay, so that's what your number tab does for you, and this is exactly what your styles do. Now there's one more thing that our styles do that I didn't touch. Notice that over here, with all of these numbers here, they have several colors. That is not here. Who does that? Aha, that's the conditional formatting. Notice that the description there says that it highlights interesting cells, emphasize unusual values, and visualize data using data bars. So let's go ahead and see how that works, shall we? Now we have several styles we could apply here, so let's just pick one of these. Let's see. Now let's say I was going to use this. Now of course, before you can apply this, you need to select the entire cells. Yes, so let's select this meantime and go over to that point, and then click on conditional formatting. Now we could pick one of these, and notice that we are having some bars. Okay, let's pick this other style and see how it goes. Okay, I think I am liking this. Okay, and there we have it. We have our cells having separate colors, and so in cases where this doesn't really do the trick that you need, you are always free to play around with it. Change it around, try to see new stuff you could do. In this case, we're having several shapes here. Okay, you could always play around with them and see how they go. But essentially, you're trying to make your Excel worksheet talk. And so without anybody sitting down to say, this is what this guy does, this is what the other guy does, you can easily look at it and say, okay, I think from description, from the way everything is arranged, I can tell that this is what this guy is supposed to do, this is what this guy is interpreted, it should be interpreted as, this is what this other person should do, and just like that, it tends to make perfect sense. Do we get it, please? Essentially, that's what we're saying there. Okay, now let's go ahead now and describe some few more things before we wrap up this particular video. Now, every text here, every number here are arranged in a particular order. Notice that the numbers are aligned to the right, whereas the text are aligned to the left. What if we wanted the text to be aligned to the middle? That's where your alignment group comes into play. The alignment groups allows you to align all of these texts or your numbers to whichever orientation you want. Presently, they are arranged or aligned as the bottom alignment. Okay, so let's say then that we wanted to do some slight arrangement to this. So I'm just going to select the sum cell and then click on center. Notice that it takes it directly to the middle. The same thing can happen to the course. The same thing can happen to the attendance. Okay, you're going to love this. You're going to love this. I'm just going to select this once. I'm already getting excited about it. I'm just going to select this once, and then I'm going to click on this arrow. Okay, it talks about rotating, and let's click on this one. Oh, how sweet is that? Now it tilted those cells, and I'm just happy. Okay, it's nice. It's nice. I kind of like it. Okay, now that's what it does. Okay, so you can always change the orientation, but make sure that the cells have been selected. Notice that I had to select those cells first before I was able to make any application. So without the cells selected, you cannot make any application. Okay, so let's see this. Oh, oh my God. Okay, I think I'm going to leave this like this. Okay, yeah, I will leave it like this for now. Now you can always play with it. Now keep in mind, like I have emphasized over and over, the idea is for this to be appealing. That's the bottom line. If it's not appealing, it's messed up. It just has to be appealing. And on that appealing note, I'm going to change this because it's looking highly unprofessional. So uh, I think I'll just settle for this. Yeah, for now. Left to me, if this were a professional job, I'm going to stick with what I have here on the left. But this is just a class, so you can at your own time play around with all the other tools there and see what they do. Okay, there's no hard and fast rule to that. Okay, it's very possible for you to use them. Okay. um okay, so at your font group, we've looked at emboldening. You know what your italics does? It basically makes your text to become italics. So if we're selecting the total, for example, and we're clicking on italics, see how it slants, it bends the guy goes down like okay. So that's what happens. Your underline gives him an extra underline, which you can always play around with at any point in time. And so essentially, you'd see that the home ribbon has plenty fine tools. You find yourself using most of them as time progresses, and they are very, very interesting. Now before I go, there's one more thing I need to pay attention to, and that is these drop down arrows that are beside each of these items at each of these cells, or the titles. Notice that to the right of the sum, you could easily see that on clicking upon that, we have something there, and at that particular point you have several lists from sort, and then we have some items that are checked. Now essentially, the word sort there basically means the arrangement of your list, or the cells that are selected in either ascending or descending order. That's essentially what sorting does. And so when we're saying ascending or descending order, if we were to arrange these cells in ascending order, what we're simply saying is that these cells will be arranged from the highest to the lowest. Okay, so if I were coming here now, we're saying from smallest to largest. Notice how it flips it. It flips my 23, which was somewhere down here, to the top. That's essentially what it does for me. Now notice that this has not been sorted because it has not been selected. But if we were to come here and do some selection, yes, it has flipped it for us and it has rearranged it. And notice that the same thing applies to all of those color bars that we added. They have all shifted their position to the position that they are now having. Okay, so essentially that is what it does for you. At the same time too, it's possible for some changes to be made to your numbers. That means you could decide to display some of the numbers or not. Now all of the numbers that are displayed here are checked. That means that if it is unchecked, they will not be applied. And you can always still apply some colors to the fields you have sorted, and play around with your Excel worksheets. That is customization for you. Customization basically allows you to play around with what you're working with. Okay, now in case you're wondering what happens here, this is your zoom tool, and it allows you to increase the size of your worksheet or reduce it. That's basically for those with eye issues, so you might want to keep that in mind. Probably if you're doing a job for somebody who maybe has issues with small images or small characters, you can always use that as a helpful way to enable the person see what you're working with better. Okay, at this point I'm going to stop this particular video and allow us to absorb this and try this out on our own. It is very, very important that you want to play around with this. Okay, so I hope this has been informative for you, and I'm going to see you at the next round.